This video is sponsored by Genshin Impact. Visit the link in the description to download the game. Like many others, I hadn't heard about Genshin Impact until it showed up in a blaze of glory during a 2020 PlayStation State of Play stream. Outside of new looks at Bugsnax and Crash Bandicoot 4 It's About Time, it was a pretty unassuming event, but Genshin in particular stuck in my mind. Last year I made a video introducing people to developer MiHoYo as anime creators, and the unique role they play in developing animated cutscenes for their games. But this time I want to talk about MiHoYo as world creators. It's been a year since Genshin Impact was first released, and in addition to becoming absolutely massive in terms of its fan base, it's expanded in terms of landmass as well. Genshin Impact has become one of the largest open world games, and it shows no signs of stopping. Back in July, Genshin released its 2.0 update, and with it the nation of Inazuma, and there's much more to explore in the years to come. But for now, instead of getting too excited about what's to come in the future, like Sumeru's gonna be cool as hell, I want to talk about what we can explore today. For a lot of people, MiHoYo came out of nowhere, but the truth is that while they started out as a small indie company and built up through Honkai Impact's third, they hired a load of new staff in 2018 and 2019 to create Genshin Impact. While many had only worked in mobile games, there were a lot of creators who used to work for support studios creating assets for American games. In fact, there's a decent number of people who left Ubisoft Shanghai to come and work at MiHoYo. Support work can feel distant, and while I don't want to assume their reasoning for leaving, working directly at MiHoYo means you have a lot better chance at getting your ideas heard, and having the opportunity to express your creativity to the world. The game launched with two regions, Mondstadt and Liyue. Mondstadt is Genshin's most typical area, but that doesn't mean it's any less vibrant. With an anime aesthetic, these are Tevat's greenest pastures, all surrounding the lake that the city resides within. It's very European, complete with windmills and castles, and it's used as the very first shot of the State of Play trailer for a good reason. It feels enticing. This area of the game also introduces an important trend, giving the player plenty of opportunities to see what's on the horizon. Most of the teleport waypoints are situated on a cliff edge or somewhere else a bit higher up, where you can have a clear viewpoint all around you of the different places you'd want to visit. Open world games are immensely popular these days, but it's only a few that really manage to create a world that feels worth exploring. Genshin Impact is a distracting game. You'll be heading one way on a quest, but then see something on the horizon and it makes you want to go check that out instead. Dragonspire Mountain is particularly great because it makes the world feel consistent. No matter where you go, you can always see Dragonspire off on the horizon, and scaling it is a genuine challenge with its own sheer cold mechanic. If you haven't explored it yet, it's a reminder of the trials to come, and if you have conquered the mountain, then you are reminded of that accomplishment, no matter where you are in Tevat. Genshin Impact is one of those games that I like to stay media blackout on. I have words muted on Twitter, and I actively avoid watching new trailers. The reason is that when I re-enter this world, I want everything to be a surprise. The feeling of spotting the Wangshu Inn for the first time was amazing. You enter Liyue and you just see this bizarre, beautiful building off in the distance. And no matter what you've got going on, you're gonna head straight there to check it out. But what's important about Genshin isn't just what it shows, but also what it hides. You need to put the work in, climb mountains, jump off cliffs, only then will you see what Tevat has to offer. This is particularly well done in Liyue. I'd already completed chapter 1 by the time I finally decided to check out Xingsui Village, and it was worth it. There's no obvious path through, so you just have to find a good bit of cliff and start climbing up it. And on the other side is this quaint village, complete with fields of flowers and rivers. Likewise, there's plenty of islands that you can only really get to by finding a big cliff and gliding off it. In this way, the stamina system is putting in work. Inspired by Breath of the Wild, exploring is a thoughtful activity. You're looking at cliff edges wondering if there's any spot to rest. You're measuring the distance and thinking, can I glide all that way? Do I have a stamina item that'll give me that extra push? And it's not just an aesthetic reward, but a narrative one as well. Each of these locations has a history and a reason for being. So you might travel to a place and say, wow, that looks cool, but then revisit it in a quest to learn more about it and the people that live there. And that's not to mention all the collectibles and puzzles to discover in these new areas. Liyue is particularly remarkable in that it's a Chinese region created by Chinese artists. There's a lot of detail and inspiration behind Mondstadt and Inazuma. But what's worth noting is that a lot of these developers have spent their careers creating maps and levels for other companies, and now they've had the chance to reflect their own homes and experiences within China to the world. This inspired a series of mini collaboration documentaries, where the developers talked about the different regions that inspired Liyue, and you can see that care in the game itself. One of the selling points for the PS5 version of the game was that players would be able to see more of the details they added into the game, and that's particularly present within the cities. They feel lived in. There's a lot of open world games that can feel a bit stale because they don't feel like people would actually live there, but that's where Genshin shines. There's always plenty of benches and chairs for people to sit, restaurants for them to visit, scenic pathways that offer convenient travel. Parts of Liyue are also particularly rich, so it's up to the art team to prove that to the player. And that's just the exteriors. The interiors are filled with even more information about the people that live there. The character designs of Genshin are already best in class, telling us so much about who these sort of people are. But the maps are also helping. Wherever you look, there are objects that tell you everything you need to know about what the people here are like, even though most people won't bother to stop and look at them. The 2.0 update added yet another region filled with detail, the archipelago of Inazuma. Japan marks the developers at MiHoYo's biggest inspirations, and this was their opportunity to condense everything they loved about the country and its culture into one map. It was brave to include another East Asian inspired region right after China, since a lot of people conflate and confuse the two cultures. But through their research, they've made the two feel distinct and unique. And like with the other parts of the game, they didn't just choose one aspect of Japan. Inazuma is separated into islands, which you can explore with your new boat, and each has its own aesthetic. Narukami Island is defined by its sakura petals, as well as the imperial design of its buildings. This is the base for the Inazuma Shogunate, and where Inazuma City is located. And even while you travel the other islands, it's constantly visible thanks to Mount Yogor and the Narukami Shrine. It's an easy island to travel around, and on its coast is Amakane Island, where a festival is being held. You visit here with multiple characters within the story. Narukami can feel opulent as you travel between Inazuma City and Ritor, but it's your travels west to the Kujo encampment and Tatarasana that put it all in perspective. Ronin roam the island, and the resistance is struggling against the shogunate. Further west, things get even more dangerous as you travel through the thunderstorms of Yashiori Island, avoiding enemies and lightning strikes as you go. But it's when you arrive at Watatsumi Islands that you can finally rest and take in the views. It's the most fantasy-esque of the islands, and has a noticeable difference in tone from the rest of Inazuma. The game's recently added fishing, and I feel that this is the best place to relax and do so. Environment art can make or break a game, and there's a huge amount of pressure on MiHoYo to nail it every time. They have to continuously add regions with both narrative and aesthetic reasons for us to explore, all while designing characters that we want to spend our Primo Gems on, and creating new puzzles and forms of combat to challenge us. Unlike a lot of other live service games, Genshin Impact launched well. It was a compelling game up front with 2 stunning regions and hours of story content and exploration. But Inazuma, with all of its cultural inspirations and the variety of imagery across the archipelago, only makes me more excited to see what's to come. Sumeru is apparently all deserts and rainforest, but if I understand MiHoYo, it'll be so much more. A lot of fantasy can be pretty basic, filled with knights and dragons, but Genshin takes a yes and approach. Yes, they have dragons and knights, and they have bamboo forests, and they have Matsuri, and they have Ronin, and they have Misty Mountains, and they have teapots you can go inside, and they have ninjas, and they have talking animals, and they have robots. Thanks for watching the Canipa Effect, and thanks to MiHoYo for sponsoring this video. As I mentioned before, the link to download the game is available in the description. But before I go, I'd like to thank all of these people who are supporting the channel this month. In particular, I'd like to thank Austin Hardwick, Dedameat, Eddie Leheka, Edwin Shale, Faux Wizard, Frizzy Canadian, Frogkun, Fujay, Jacob Bosley, JR Pictures, My Own Mother, Naylor Drink, Nolan Soga, Quentin Elkin Smith, Ryan Taylor, and Toma Rahman.